Hello and welcome to this session of Get Digital. My name is Abdul Salam Salim and I'm Assistant Professor in Digital Business at DCU Business School. And I'm delighted to be your MC for this session. Throughout this week in Get Digital, we will be exploring a range of topics related to business, leadership, and entrepreneurship, with a particular focus on how businesses at all stages and of all sizes can harness these transformational digital technologies to achieve their business goals. Turning to this session now, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Martin Hennig, Senior Digital Transformation and Business Consultant at NoA Connect, who will be talking about how to elevate your business with marketing automation. To our audience, we would love to receive your questions, so please submit them during the session using the Q&A function, which you will find at the bottom of your screen. Please be aware that the chat function is disabled, so please only use the Q&A option. We will then compile the questions, and I'll ask Martin to address as many as he can in the time we have available. So looking forward to your questions. Please remember to use the Q&A function as the chat is disabled. So with no further delay, I'll hand you over to Martin.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Very excited to be here. Yeah, let's get started, right? I'm going to share my screen, and then we can take a look at how we can elevate our marketing with marketing automation. A little bit about myself. I'm actually a DCU alumni. I did my master in e-commerce. Oh my God, so long ago now. 10 years ago? Oh, geez. But now I live in Sweden. I work in digital marketing, and my background, my specialties is SEO and marketing automation. And I worked with my fair share of technologies over the years, including HubSpot, Google, and Salesforce marketing platforms. And yeah, I think the most important thing about this slide is probably, since we only have about an hour to talk about marketing automation, I can talk about it all day. Feel free to reach out. If you don't get a chance in the chat here, find me on LinkedIn and we take it from there. So the agenda then for today, we're going to take a quick look at what is marketing automation, right? We also take a look at how can you as an organization know if you're ready to embark on this adventure. So we're going to look at the company readiness. We'll talk a little bit about what you need to be successful at marketing automation. We'll take a look at what it may looks like in theories and practice, and the ideal marketing automation tech and team setup. And then hopefully we have plenty of time at the end for all of your questions. If that sounds good, then let's take a quick look. Some of those logos might be familiar to some of you, right? Those are some of the more popular solutions that are out there. And what marketing automation does, or where it lives, it's at the intersection of marketing and sales, right? That's where you manage all of your lead activities, from lead generation to lead capture to lead nurturing. To some degree, you're going to profile your leads, you're going to assign your leads, you're going to hand them over to sales. This is what marketing automation is really good at. We also use it to plan, streamline, and automate our tasks and campaigns. And in an ideal setup, we can also easily measure the success of our activities within the platform. We've all been subject to marketing automation, I'm sure. The most common ones that you might have come across are email automation, landing pages, and web forms. Some of the things you may not know is actually there's over 300 platforms to choose from when it comes to marketing automation and campaign management. So it can get tricky for you to really narrow down and find the one that just works for you. So for the next half an hour, 45 minutes, I'll give you a bit of a framework on how to approach this task. You'll be glad to hear that marketing automation improves your marketing team's productivity, and about 80% of marketers report an increase in leads. So that's good. So now that we're excited about marketing automation, what do we need to ask ourselves to really establish if we're ready, right? Why would we want to look at marketing automation? For example, are we doing a lot of repetitive tasks that are time-consuming manually? That's really one of the core issues, or the core benefits of using marketing automation, is that repetitive process, right? That you do manually, you do your send outs manually. There's a tool for that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Are we generating enough quality leads? Obviously, marketing automation is just one piece of your digital marketing puzzle, but it can definitely help you to generate leads and to manage your leads. Do leads fall through the cracks when handed over to sales? If the answer is yes, then you should definitely look at marketing automation. I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen leads get lost in email inboxes, in shared Excel spreadsheets that no one is looking at. And every now and then we even hear about companies who put like little sticky notes on the screens and call that a lead handover. Do we spend too much time on tedious admin tasks? If that's the case, then let's look at MA. Do we have comprehensive and consistent methods of measuring our success? Marketing automation platforms will allow you to manage all of that within one platform and also compare and look at your KPIs across different activities. And then could we use more data and insight about our customers? Nah, probably not, right? Who needs that? No, of course we do. And marketing automation platforms will help you just do that. And then last but by no means least, are we able to manage personalization at scale? Without marketing automation, it's going to be tricky, right? You might send your mass emails out of your Outlook. There's only so much you can do when it comes to personalization. So that's where we have a big advantage here. So now that we're excited about MA, let's see what we really need to be successful. And this is a very important slide. I'm sure you all heard about buyer personas and customer journeys. Buyer personas are the people that you're targeting, right? That's your ideal audience, and customer journeys are all the different touch points that your visitors, your leads, your prospect, and your customers have with your brand. So you need to be able to narrow down what are our key target groups and what does our customer journey map look like in order to take full advantage of marketing automation. We need quality content, and content in our world means things like landing pages, email templates, content offers. Content offers are typically your webinars. It could be a white paper. It could be your reports, things that people would want to access. And then connected platforms. So some of the marketing automation platforms in today's session, they what we call like a full suite platform, right? So you can manage everything within. You have all your customer data, you have your email capabilities, you have your social media and your advertising within that platform. If you don't, that's okay too, right? If you use different platforms, the keyword here is they need to be connected. You definitely need a dedicated person. As far as I'm concerned, you need a dedicated team. So we'll look at what that team could look like in a moment. And you also need the right skill set, mindset, tool set, and expectations. And when it comes to expectations around marketing automation, keep in mind it's not something that you do once. It's not a once-off activity or once-off cost. It takes time and effort. It does not replace, your marketing strategy. Marketing automation is a technology, it's a tactic, but it's not a strategy in itself. And you probably need to look also beyond your marketing team, right? It's a cross-functional ongoing initiative that will include a lot of people from product, from pre-sales. So it does require resources and attention in order to be successful. All right, then here we're going to take a quick look at some of the more common features, some of those logos you probably recognize from that first slide. I don't think we have time to go through all of these, so I just highlighted a few. If any of you guys have any questions on those, maybe put that in the Q&A at the end. But some things I want to highlight is visitor and prospect activities we can track using marketing automation. And typically how that works is with every marketing automation tool, you get a little script that you add to your website and right into the HTML code. And it will allow you to follow your visitors, which is someone anonymous, right? Someone that we don't know yet, to see, okay, what pages are they browsing? What content are they looking at? And then once they convert, which in our world means now they're a known prospect, right? So they fill in a form, we know their name or we know their email address, then the tracking continues. So now we know, okay, so it's Jimmy who's looking at our product page or at our pricing page. Speaking of forms, one of the most powerful and fun tools that I always use is progressive profiling. And I'm sure we've all seen that, right? So you go to a website, you find content that you like, you download a white paper, and then you ask for your email address, your first name, your last name, and maybe your company. And then on that same page, you continue to browse, you find another report, sounds interesting, let's fill out that form. And they ask for the same stuff, right? They ask for your email address, for your first name, for your last name, and for your company again. And you're like, why would you do that? So with progressive profiling, which that company then doesn't have, we will only ask for the things that we don't know about you yet, which means for the second content offer that you're about to download, we either don't ask for anything, right, because we already know everything, or we will, instead of asking for the company, you might ask for, your industry or the amount of employees and so on. Next one, then, email marketing. So a lot of times when we think about marketing automation, we automatically think email marketing. So email marketing obviously includes your once-off send-outs, right? You have a list, you have an audience that you want to get a message across. You have a new product, or you have an event coming up, or there's changes of some sort. So you want to send a once-off mass email. That's one case. Second one, again, for those forms that we just talked about, there might be an auto response, right? So that's an email in itself. It will hopefully use some of the personalization that we collected in that form. And then we have emails that are part of a bigger nurturing program, right? So it's an audience that we can define, but it's a sequence of emails that we're sending them. So those are typically the three key areas where you see email marketing. A/B testing, of course, again, in email marketing, very important. Sometimes you want to experiment with your subject lines or with your pre-header, with content elements. So a lot of platforms will support that. And then the reason why I mention the last two here, number 19 and 20, a lot of times when I talk to clients about the opportunity of including marketing automation in a tech setup, they think it's an addition, right? It's something that they have to pay another invoice for. It's just more technology into their team. But the reality is, with some of those tools, you can actually replace some of the other tools you might be using, right? Things like your SEO analytics or your social media publishing. So don't just think of MA as a cost. It's an investment which might make some of the other tools redundant. Some of the use cases, again, I already mentioned the gated content offers, the forms and the signups, but a lot of companies also use marketing automation for customer onboarding, right? So all the things that your account managers might have sent out manually in the past, here are your top contacts, here are some FAQs, here are some tips and tricks. All of those can be lined up for any new customer using marketing automation. So you only have to set it up once, and it will automatically pick up your new customers and nurture them that way. Another misconception that we sometimes come across is that marketing automation is either entirely or primarily customer focused, which is also not necessarily the case. There's a lot of internal automations we can use it for. There's a lot of segmentation that we can do on our existing database. A lot of things that are really not customer focused at all, but they work internally. We use it for personalization and dynamic content. And on the boring end of the scale, we also use it for consent management, right? Things like GDPR. You always see that little tick box under all of our forms. So yeah, if you have any questions on any of those features, please drop that in the FAQ, and we'll come back to it later. Now, is B2C marketing different from B2B marketing? Of course it is, which then also means you would have to look at different technologies, right? If you're in B2C or in B2B. Some of the B2C features we would use marketing automation for, things like, I've been window shopping on your e-commerce store. I didn't quite complete the checkout. We can use MA to send a reminder email to say, hey, you haven't quite completed your purchase yet. Would be a prime case for MA. Things like location-based text messages, right? I'm walking down Grafton Street, passing my favorite Starbucks, and I get an offer to my phone to say, hey, come in, you get a half price latte. Large send outs, right? In B2C, much more common than in B2B. Your audience or your potential audience is much larger. and a lot of your activities around building your brand versus a specific offer. And then generally speaking, B2C, our purchase is much more emotional, right? We're looking for those ad hoc offers, personalized. Sweatshirt guy, he might have bought his jeans, and then he gets a little pop-up to say, hey, you know what? With your jeans, you need that loose sweater. So it's much more of a quicker buying cycle too. If we then want to focus on how it differs to B2B, let's take a quick look. B2B is really where some of your lead profiling and scoring comes into play, right? Because you have those way longer buying cycles. Lead profiling is, again, using some of those forms and other content offers to really understand who are we talking to, what is your role within the company, and then once we know what your role is, we're going to compare it. Okay, with what have you been looking at our page, right? If you're on our product pages, we probably have a fair idea of what you're interested in. If you browse our pricing pages, then we know, okay, it might be time to get our sales team going on this or get ready for this client, this potential client. Or on the other hand, if you're browsing our open our vacancies or our jobs, then you're probably not really a B2B lead. Maybe you're just someone who's trying to research the company and maybe become a new colleague. In B2B, also much more happening in the background when it comes to the marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads assignments. Again, some of those would work with automations instead of anything manual. We have account-based marketing in B2B. We have role-tailored content, right? Again, sweater guy probably doesn't need to know too much about the sustainability of where that sweater came from and whatnot. But in B2B, we have all those procurement processes where we have different people researching different areas of our business. That's probably where we have our investor relations and so on. So those are much more tailored to specific roles. The nurture flows are much more extensive, and there's much more educational material in those kind of flows. I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have any questions, we can get back to it in our FAQs. I thought it might be fun to look into an actual example, right? So this is a fictional form that we're going to fill out. We're going to have to put in our work email, our first name, our last name, and our company. Those are the explicit data points that we're capturing. Our marketing automation platform will also be able to pick up the URL, right, to get a bit of understanding of where this form was completed. We might be able to even know already your company based on your IP range. We probably have a decent idea about your location, right, where you're browsing our pages from. We can see some of your interests because you've been visiting different pages. Maybe you used the page search, maybe you didn't. Maybe you came in via social, maybe we didn't. But if you did, all of this is information that we have at this point where you're just filling out that simple form. We've probably all seen examples like this, right? So I filled out a form. In this case, was for a white paper. Dear Martin Hennig, thank you for requesting a white paper. For immediate access, please click here, link, thank you. So those are the information, that's the information that we just collected in that form that we're using. What I would try to encourage you to do is, if you're using that type of technology, maybe think a little differently, right? So maybe instead of just that first auto response, follow up a couple of minutes later with something that looks really, really personal, right? So we have auto response number 2 here as an example. This is Paul. Hi, Martin, CEO at the company we just downloaded the white paper from. I just noticed you requested our report and I wanted to personally thank you. Our teams put a lot of work and effort into our materials. Hopefully you and your colleagues at NoA Connect find it useful. Reach out anytime, Paul. Again, this second version is using the exact same information that we just collected, but in a very different fashion, right? It makes you feel like, oh man, this Paul guy is really into this. He's excited to download his white paper. It's just marketing automation, but it really gives you that personalized feel. So I think it works really well. So you should try that. Now that we covered some of the theory about what marketing automation can do, I thought it might also be interesting for you guys to see what does it actually look like, right? When I log into a tool, what do I see? This screenshot example is from Salesforce Pardot, one of the B2B platforms that we're using. And this is what a journey could look like, right? So we have our starting point at the top, and then we have an action, which in our case is we're going to send an email. Actions is anything that we initiate, right? The person running the marketing automation program selects those actions. Then we have what we call triggers, or an engagement split. So a trigger would be used to then see, okay, which one of the people that I targeted interacted with my email, right? Who opened it, who clicked on links, and based on that trigger, they will go down a different path in our little setup here. So let's say you didn't open an email, maybe there's another follow-up email, maybe some kind of a reminder with a different subject line to get you going. Or if you did open email but you didn't click on it, maybe you get a different kind of an email next time around. Or if you did open it, did click, hey, you know what, we have extra content for you that you wouldn't have received otherwise. So very, very powerful. And I know it can look quite overwhelming, right? When you start it, when you look at it this way, but it's step by step, a very, very clear logic that you can just figure out. And again, the beauty is you only have to do it once, right? Those type of programs, there's no difference if you have 3 people in it or 300,000, right? You only have to set it up once. Rules, as a third element that powers MA. Rules are more around criteria that lives outside of this specific program, right? So let's say, yes, you did open that email, but we also want to check what is your role, right? Are you CEO? Are you a different member of the decision-making group? Then we might add an additional action in here to give a heads up to our sales team, for example. So don't be intimidated by looks of it. There's plenty of learning material out there that will help you set those up. There's also a lot of templates that you can actually use depending on a platform. Again, this is Pardot. It starts from top to bottom. There are other ones that start from left to right. But in essence, those will be the things that you're dealing with when you try to set up those engagement programs. I hope that makes sense. All right, so we talked a lot about what MA can do, what you need to be successful. Now let's look at it from a customer journey perspective, right? Where can we actually use it? So you're probably familiar with this type of framework, right? We have the awareness stage. People evaluate our services, they make a purchase decision, and hopefully become a loyal customer. Within that journey, where do we use MA? Advertising, right? If your platform supports advertising, you can use it. Drip campaigns, we just looked at those. Customer newsletters, absolutely. Customer loyalty program, yes, same thing, right? We will have one of those programs ready. We use it for our blog. We can use it for surveys, and I think you get the theme here, right? The reality is we can use marketing automation at probably almost every single step of the customer journey. Again, depending on what type of platform we use, right? There are simpler ones, there are more sophisticated ones, and usually the price you pay somewhat correlates to the functions that you have available to you. All right, let's take a quick look. What then is the ideal marketing automation setup? So again, if there was no rule and we could just come up with the ideal setting, this would probably be it. We have tons of segmented audiences, right, where we have tailor-made content that's hyper relevant to them, ready to go. We can trust our data because it's rich and reliable. It's available for marketing. We have cross-functional teams, right? So we are in constant contact with our sales team, our marketing team. We know exactly who to target and what they're interested in. We have our customer relationship management technology, and our marketing is seamless. No one falls through the cracks. Everything is within one platform, or at least connected. We are able to deliver not just personalized content, but personalized experience across channels and audiences, right? Nothing is more annoying than inconsistency on your brand between social and website and email. So that's a big plus here. And then again, all of our campaign management, our task management, our reporting is all connected. This could be one platform, or it could be a variety of connected platforms. So far, so good. All right, then let's take a look at our ideal team, right? So we talked about the ideal setup. Who do we need on our team to be successful? All right, guy in the gray shirt over here. He's our marketing automation admin. He's the doer, right? He's the one that owns. He's the platform advocate. He knows it inside out. He has a strong background in lead generation, email marketing, inbound, and so on. He's our platform champion. He's the guy who's doing all those beautiful journeys we've just seen. He's working closely with the content manager. Right, the content manager is the person that creates that smart, compelling content that supports our activities. This person will be working closely with the design team, the lead team, the product teams to really produce that content that converts. That's probably the girl in the pink shirt, I would assume. We have the designer, right? So designer guy, tall guy in the yellow shirt. He has the last say when it comes to our marketing assets. He owns our brand tone and voice, and he makes sure everything is spot on brand. Then we have our lead nurture specialist. This person is the one that develops all the communication and owns the customer journey and completely understands our buyer personas. Definitely needs to be part of this team to make it successful. We have the analytics expert, guy in the yellow sweater here, or what is it, orange? You cannot be successful if you are not able to not only measure your activities but also interpret them, right? So this person knows the right information to capture and analyze and report, and he's sharing those actionable insights with the organization, both sales and marketing, and probably even the executive team. He's reviewing all the data, he's testing hypotheses, and he's making sure that we are capturing all the right info. And since this is the ideal team, we also cannot forget about the office dog. He needs to be in there. All right, potential pitfalls. Okay, I'm going to take a breather here. So now that we know, we have a good understanding of what it is that we need to do to be successful, let's take a look at this. If we fail to do this, we are doomed to fail, right? Data and content. To be honest, if you have unreliable data, that's even worse than having no data. Unreliable data a lot of times means you're implementing your marketing automation in an existing environment where you have a lot of customer data, but we're not sure if it's accurate. One problem. Second problem, content, right? You cannot be successful with marketing automation if you don't have that content that really powers all your journeys. And to be honest, that's pretty much it, right? If you have those two figured out, I think you're 80% there. That's what you need to get going. So just to wrap this presentation up, so we have some time for the Q&As. Marketing automation is an investment, right? It's going to take some time, and it's also going to cost you some money. Speaking of cost, the more simpler email marketing might start at around $20 or so per month. If we're going into more enterprise platforms, we're probably talking a couple of $1,000s a year. Depending on our business, we would probably have to look at different tools if we're in B2B and B2C. And the technology that we're using will also depend on the size of our company, our ambitions, and our data. And to get back to the cost, the cost will probably also depend on the amount of customers we're marketing to. I would always recommend to start at the back end, right? We want to start at the business goals and processes, and then we work our way down to the technology and people part. And I would highly recommend to use things like Salesforce Trailhead or maybe HubSpot Academy to further educate yourself on marketing automation. There's a lot of good information out there. And here are also a couple of links from some of the articles that I published around marketing automation on our website at noaconnect.com. I hope we have some questions waiting for us.
All right, that was brilliant. Thank you very much, Martin. we receive a couple of questions, and I'll start to asking the straight away. But if you haven't asked any questions, please do so in the few minutes using the Q&A function, please. So the first question to Martin is, do you see any ethical issues with when it comes to tracking visitors in an anonymous way?
Yeah, that's a perfectly valid question. So I think, I mean, when you look at it from the tracking and data perspective, you would probably need to have your disclaimers on your website, just like any other website does, right? Where you have to accept those tracking cookies. And if you don't accept them, this will not work, right? So this is an ideal scenario, ideal for the marketer, where we can avail of all those functions. But yes, it's also very easy to get very creepy with marketing automation, right? If we really want to use all the information that we are able to collect, that would be a little messy. So I would definitely agree with the fact that yes, it always has to be a consideration, right? Because we do, yeah, we are able to really see, at least on our own website, right, what pages you are looking at, and we can take our own conclusions. And I did speak with sales leaders, and they're like, okay, so the second someone is looking at our pricing page, I'm going to give them a call. So that's obviously absolutely not what you want to do, right? That's way too creepy. They will never come back. So yeah, it's a very, very valid question. So thank you very much for that. But yeah, the user is always in control, right? If you browse anonymously, if you don't accept those cookies, none of this works. Great question.
Another question here for email A/B testing. What's your priority list to test? Is it subject line, copy, or
Yeah,
emojis?
correct. So there's if we look at it at an email, right? We have different elements. We have different KPIs. So let's say we would like to increase our email open rate, right? We have three areas that we can look at for email open rate. We have the sender as the authority, right? Sometimes it works if we send as the company. Sometimes it actually works better if you send as a person, right? So that's one element that you can try. And you obviously always want to just A/B test one element, right? So if opening rate is our issue, we're going to do one test on the sender one. We're going to do another one on the subject line, right? That's the second indicator for open rates. And then the third one, which not all email clients will actually display, but it's that pre-header, right? So depending on your inbox, sometimes you get a little paragraph to give you a heads up about what the email is going to be about. So those are the three areas you will do for email opening rates. When it comes to some of your other KPIs like click-through rate, now people are in the email, right? So now I have to look at, okay, maybe my CTA, my call to action is not in the right place, right? Maybe the email is too long, too wordy, too lengthy. No one's actually going to go all the way to the bottom where I have my CTA. So that's another consideration. And in general, I would always recommend to keep emails short, right? We have to keep in mind that a lot of people, I mean, how do you open your email, right? A lot of times it's on your phone. So if you're then just bombarded with this huge text, chances are, it's marked as read, but you may or may not get back to it later on. So try to keep them short. And for things like email newsletters, for example, have a bit of a paragraph and then link to the actual text, right? To make it really user friendly. So those would be some areas to improve your click-through rates. And again, all of those areas are subject to A/B testing. And then when I mentioned dynamic content, so based on the audience segments that we're sending to, the same email could be displayed to different people in a different fashion. Because if we know, let's say you're into travel stuff, right? You get that email. We want to promote our website, but since we know that you would be in that travel segment, the image that you see in that email is of an airplane versus someone else who's into hiking and might be a mountain, right? Same email, same setup, but we're taking advantage of dynamic content. So yes, A/B test, but always just one element at a time. But some of the MA platforms will actually help you then with the decision-making process, right? There are some that will choose the winner for you. And then, if you have a send out of 10,000, there's a bit of a pause after, the first 2,000. And if we have decided on a winner for that A/B test, the rest will only get that winning version, which is pretty powerful.
All right, that's great. Another question. What steps would you start with if an SME with only one or two employee and with limited budget in terms of marketing automation?
Yeah, a great question. Again, I have a big heart for startups, scale ups, and small organizations. Again, marketing automation starts at a very low cost. There might even be some that start you off free, right? There's some tools that have a free CRM, and then you might pay for some of the email functionality. The best setup is always to really understand your data, right? Understand your customers. That's probably where you want to invest the most time initially. Narrow down on those buyer personas that we mentioned. Work a lot with some of the other free elements of digital marketing, including SEO, improving your content. But then, yes, slowly but surely, I would start to invest in at least that email marketing, right? Because that's really a big help. You don't have to send out those mass emails manually, and you can be much more personal. But yeah, I would say start up slow. When you look at your vendors, take a close look at what their conditions are, right? Does the platform support you in that growth journey, or does it mean, geez, once I reach a certain stage, I can't continue with this? You probably don't want to be locked in like that. So do compare those, not necessarily the 300 plus, but narrow it down to a few good solutions, and then make sure you can slowly ramp up your marketing automation efforts. But it does work for organizations of all sizes.
Oh, I think, and I think same question here, Martin. When it comes to the platform, when you come to choose which platform, market information platform, is there any advantages for using the free platform over the like the one you just mentioned right now, Salesforce, and the big names like hotspots and
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, for a lot of the smaller ones, something like a Mailchimp might probably be a good first step, right? That's really, as you're ramping up your content, you probably don't have those sophisticated journeys available right away.
Hmm.
So yes, there's also some free technology. If you don't mind that you might have limited customization options, if you don't mind that there might be a watermark or a little a footnote in your image to say that it's powered by so and so. I think it's perfectly fine to start off and getting used to at least the functionalities. I mean, at some point, again, the features are fairly similar, but we also have to be realistic. You probably don't want to change vendor too often, because there is some steep learning with some of them that you really have to get into. But again, do your research and pick the ones that are not only popular, but where you can also get a good feel for, okay, what does the support look like? Is there a lot of information available for me to learn the technology on my own, and so on? And I think you're in a good position then.
I think another in the same manner of choosing platform uh, in terms of flexibility of reporting the results or the findings. Uh, how flexible is most of the MA
Yeah.
platforms in terms when it comes to reporting?
Yeah. So again, some are better than others, right? And if we're talking low budget or no budget, your Google Analytics will always be your best friend when it comes to at least your website reporting. But all marketing automation platforms that I'm aware of at least have that element of your basic KPIs, right? So if you have email as a function within that technology, you will definitely get your deliverability rates, your open rates, your click-through rates. All those come pretty standard. If you
Yeah,
want to go deeper, a lot of times the more you pay, the more you get, right? If
yeah,
you're really interested in, okay, what kind of device are they using? What is their email client? If you're looking for those type of overviews, or did they open, but did they just skim? Did they just have a quick look, or did they spend some time on that email? Did they print that email? Did they forward that email? Some of those reporting features will only be available with some of the higher end and probably then more expensive tools, which you may or may not need right away, right?
right. That's good advice. Uh, to further educate on these MA platforms, you mentioned learning from Hotspot Academy. I didn't catch the Salesforce name. Can you advise? Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's Trailhead, Salesforce Trailhead, and again, those are just two that I like. Actually, the Trailhead has a very they have a very good app, so you can do it on the go commuting and so on. And some of it will be platform specific, right? So both HubSpot Academy or Salesforce Trailhead, they obviously have a lot of Salesforce or HubSpot technology, but there's also a lot of them that are just really good best practice where it comes to email strategy, right? Some of the stuff that we mentioned, what to look out for, how do you improve certain KPIs, what does a good email look like, where and how do I test that email before I send it out. Those platforms will work really well. So Salesforce Trailhead is the name of that one.
Thank you. Another question. Do you have any successful case study for using marketing automation?
I mean, right away, I don't, right? I don't have
Hmm.
it. I can't send it
But do you
over.
recommend? Yeah, yeah.
It's a good idea. I should probably add that to our website. We do see a lot of success rate. Some of the clients that I worked with in financial sector or on telecom, we do see not often like immediate results, right? There's a bit of a ramp up phase, and for those we're also talking more of the like enterprise platforms that they do take some time to even implement, right? You have to talk to your IT team, you have to get that code up on the page, you have to make sure everything is all set. But across the board, let's put it the other way. I've never heard of someone who doesn't get anything out of MA if they consider some of the things that I mentioned here, right? Sometimes we come into organizations and they say, yeah, let's do MA, and there's zero content, right? Then I'm setting up the account, I'm setting up all kinds of things, but if I have zero content, there's going to be zero lead nurturing, right? So that's why I would highly encourage everyone to really start with the basics. Make sure you know what you're trying to achieve and make sure you're set up for success. Those would be the only times when companies fail, right? If they don't have that team set up, if they can't create that content, if they don't have the skills to get it out there, those would be the only times when they fail. Otherwise, I would hate to call it no-brainer, but otherwise it's a pretty solid investment for organizations of most sizes, especially when you have those repetitive process that I talked about earlier, right? That's really when you get the most out of it.
Very good. Another question here. Do you think GDPR has made customers more aware of how their email data is being used, and
Absolutely,
they
yes.
made and they may maybe turn off by hyper personalization or the opposite?
Yeah, no, I think I mean GDPR people are generally more aware. I see it too, right? In our line of work, we do have more people who then ask me stuff. Where did you get my email? So that goes back to kind of your question about being ethical at the beginning, right? There might still be organizations out there that think it's okay to purchase lead lists, right? I have never recommended that to anyone that I worked with. You need to grow your database organically. But the reality is, especially if you come into established businesses that already have a large customer database, that might predate GDPR, right? Those might be leads that they picked up at conventions, where they had a little booth and people throw in their business card to win a prize, and then 5 years later they get our email. They're like, wow, who are you guys? How do you send me that stuff? So that's definitely consideration. So you have to be ready to know where you find all that data, right? So you can follow that process and tell them exactly, oh, okay, and you always obviously give them the option to opt out, right? There's none of the legit technologies will even allow you to send out an email if you don't have that unsubscribe button in every single email, right? Because the customer needs to be in charge of their data. Absolutely.
All right.
And yeah, to get back to that question, also the second part, uh, you know, I'm a strong believer in advertising. Everything is out there anyway, uh, so we cannot avoid being advertised or marketed to. So to me personally, those interest-based choices that I have, they're probably still better than getting random stuff that I'm not remotely interested in, right? So if I cannot avoid it altogether, I might as well get some stuff that I'm actually interested in, right? And the better companies, they will also let you manage your own preferences, right? You might be interested in a certain company, but man, they have like 6 different business verticals. You only care for 1 or 2 of them. Give them the choice to say, hey, you know what? I'm interested in those things. I might be interested in your events, but I don't really need this, this, and this, right? Let the customer be in charge.
Right. Very good advice. I think we still have time for a couple of questions. Here's another one. Can email marketing automation increase web searching volume for businesses in order to gain a return on investment?
Yeah. So the email marketing, I mean, by itself, maybe not. But if we think of some of the other elements that marketing automation platforms will give you, things like landing pages, right? Very specific campaign-focused landing pages you can manage. They don't always have the biggest SEO boost, right? Because they only have that one, CTA, the one thing that they want you to do. But overall, it will absolutely improve your presence. It will make you be more flexible as a team. I mean, in the past, I don't know what kind of organizations are on the call here, but sometimes in marketing, you just want to create that page, you just want to get this out there, but you're dependent on, someone in IT who has to hard code it somewhere, right? If you had a simple landing page builder, either as a standalone technology or as part of your marketing automation platform, you're much more flexible, you're much faster, you can engage a prospect much quicker. So I think it does work beyond just emailing prospects. Absolutely.
Okay, here's another question. The second question is, uh, what is the ballpark figure for hiring an MA agent monthly?
So are we talking outsourcing or in-house? I mean, I think it really depends on obviously the experience that you need. So that's a very tricky question. Also depends on where you are. But with a lot of things, like what you pay is what you get, right? But there are a lot of people. I mean, we hired some very young people who didn't have a lot of marketing automation experience, and it turned out to be a benefit, right? Because someone like me who's been working in this for 15 years, I'm almost like polluted by different systems, right? Because it's like, they're somewhat similar, but they're also different. If you then have someone younger, you can really just focus on that one platform or technology that you're about to use in your organization. I think there's a lot of great learning in there, a lot of ownership, and it doesn't break the bank if you hire that person. And again, if you think about outsourcing marketing automation, similar to outsourcing SEO, you will never get rid of it, right? You always have to have someone from within your own organization to be that liaison, to really tell them, okay, this is what we're looking for, right? Those are our touch points. Those are things where we want to move the needle. So a lot of those, I don't think you can just easily outsource, right? So you always have to have that relationship and make sure that they represent you well.
I think you mentioned in the slides that MA is not replacing the marketing strategy, but there is a question here. Do you think MA is essential strategy for small businesses trying to grow? And how should small businesses with no experience in this area start their marketing automation journey?
Yeah. So again, great question. I think again, you start with the basics, right? You start with what you have, and then you build up. You got to look after your content, and the first touch point or the first initiative for a lot of companies that I've been working with is it's that simple email, like mass email. You move away from sending from your Gmail or Outlook account. You build your lists, your interests. You have those options on your website where people can convert, and then you can capture those leads by offering premium content, and that's how you slowly get started. And I know we talked a little bit about forms in the presentation, but sometimes people ask me, of course, from a sales perspective, right? I have those 20 data points that I would like from any prospect before I ever reach out. Realistically, who wants to fill out a form with 20 different elements, right? So you have to compromise somewhere. And the rule of thumb is like we have to consider the perceived value, right? If it's a one-pager PDF. I'm not going to give you 6 different data points, right? If I'm just watching a video, you probably shouldn't gate it. But if it's a really comprehensive, industry report that I can use for my business, then yes, I'll be happy to give you my work email and so on, right? So it's an important consideration.
Right, brilliant. I don't think that we have any more questions. Let me check.
But yeah, I'm glad we had time for all those questions. Those are excellent questions. And again, it's amazing what you can do, right, with marketing automation. But it's also sometimes amazing for me to see how little attention it gets, or someone thinks, oh yeah, I have that one person in marketing, just do that for us. That's not how it works, right? It's a true commitment. You need to have your own little task force of people before you ever even commit to a platform, right? That's why I like that process first approach. What are we trying to achieve? And then from there we're looking for the technology that will enable us to achieve those things. And then from there we will look at the people that can run that technology for us. And when we pick, and that's usually a question that always comes up, is like, who do you recommend? So that's very tricky, of course, to say, because it really depends on your individual case. But I would say look for things like, what does their support look like, right? That marketing automation vendor prospect. What does their onboarding look like? What does the local talent pool look like, right? I mean, I might find a really fancy solution, but then when I'm looking to hire that someone, it's just not, those people are not available, right, where I live. So those are all considerations when you decide between those 300 plus platforms. And again, another one is, am I looking for that one tool that can replace all the others? I just commit to one big name, and then I don't have to worry about anything else. Or do I do that, step-by-step approach, where it's like, okay, to be honest, for my business right now, we have a decently solid website. I'm going to start with some email marketing. That's all I need, right? So why do I buy the limousine if I need a Vespa kind of approach? But then you will also see that over time, if you keep adding and adding and adding and adding different technologies and different tools, then maybe there's a point in time where you then want to consider, okay, again, looking at everything I'm trying to achieve, what do I need? And then you talk to some of the more comprehensive tools. But then you also have a better understanding of what it is that you're looking for, because it can be overwhelming. And again, as a starting point, there's a lot of review pages out there, right? So if you just look for those, G2 or Trustpilot or some of them, they will answer some of those questions, and they will also help you to say, okay, so in this segment, that seems to be a popular solution. And the larger segments, this is what people typically go for.
Interesting. I think we've come to the end of the soon. Before wrapping up, I'd like to thank Martin for taking the time to give us an interestful and interesting talk, and to all of you for joining us today and for your question as well. GETDigital will continue with our upcoming session, which is Ask Me Anything on e-commerce at 11:45. So stay tuned. My final thanks to Martin, and goodbye, and have a good day. The rest. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Martin.
Bye.